Okay. Who's with me still? Gav, Brian, good evening. Good evening, Chris. Right, good evening and welcome again. So I'm going to get rid of this. I say live stream. I'm going to start again. So apologies to the YouTube streamers. I'm actually going to start this live stream again. And what we're going to cover is I did actually do a quick recap on this. And so recapping yesterday, I started off by mapping out a track. I created a MIDI file. I dragged the MIDI file in. This is literally going to be a quick, very, very quick recap because I've just realized that I've been streaming live and not showing you the screen. So quick recap. We're going to add some time-based delays and effects, which is just what I've just started to actually do. Developing transitions, adding more noise effects, adding maybe some more synth layers, basic mixing, EQ, compression, developing the intro and not the outro because we're not going to get time. But without further ado, I'll get straight into the session. As I say, I started off yesterday with a basic chord structure. I dragged this in. I'm using Unison MIDI Files, and they're a great company. They provide you MIDI files which are pre-programmed. If you're not sort of brilliant at music theory, it's a great way to learn music theory and understand chord structuring. So I took this MIDI pattern, I created this 8th note pattern by literally down here. Sections, and they were all like this, and I just put them back. I created an 8th note and I started to sort of draw in the patterns like so, just clicking along and clicking the notes. We'll get rid of that because that'll sound silly. And then I made a bass from that. To get these sounds, what I did, I loaded up a Synth plugin. I went to my silent sound banks, my custom sound banks, and to add your custom sound banks, you literally put your location and you can access as many of your sound banks that you have all in one location quickly. And we're using the Ardent City leads and chords patch, which will be available on our website as a free resource, and it's also available on YouTube if you want to search for that. So to do the next section, what I did is I created a bass. I also left this bass in here with the full notes, and to create the bass I literally just take the whole pattern, get rid of all of the top section of notes like so. And to do that, I'd literally just highlight those like that and delete. And that left a nice sort of break bass section here. Okay, and to create the bass, this bass here, so I just copied the pattern down again, got rid of all of the top notes, and actually just left that bottom bass pattern. But the bass pattern, if I just select all of these, it was actually 2 octaves down, and you could hardly hear it. It was in a C on a D1 note, and when you listen back to that, it's very, very low. So yeah, sorry, I transposed the octave, the notes 2 octaves up to get that to sound right. And Again, I've got to keep on remembering to solo my microphone when I do this and turn things off. And I'm going to have to explain sort of the sidechain triggering again quickly. So I put sort of sidechain triggers onto some of these sections, onto the bass. I've just done it onto the drums to create subtleness in the drums. I put the drums into a group, and just to explain quickly what I like to do is I like to sort of work on a section here, on a build section and a break section at the same time. So usually a 16 bar loop. So it gets you out of the 1 2 bar 8 bar loop formula, and you get straight into 16 bars. You create a full energy part and a drop part like so. Okay, I've also got a white noise there, which is running from a synth. I froze a track. Okay, can you hear me still? Yeah. So to do that on there, I froze a track like so. You drag the MIDI file down, and it created an audio. So if I just do this, you'll see what I mean. Things are not going well tonight again. Like so. So I'm just going to freeze that, and then you create a new audio track below. So you right click on the channels here, create a new audio track, insert audio track. Once you have an audio track, you just hold the control key or the command key, or see the option key on Mac, and it creates a audio version of that. And obviously that one was filtered, so that's why it looks slightly different. And then what I did from there, to put it into a sampler, to be able to manipulate the pitch of it, I literally just dragged the sample like so, create a new MIDI track, create a simpler, and I literally just drag the sample into there like so. For example, I'll just demonstrate this. I could drop in, oh dear, things are just going mad now, as per usual. Not having a good session here. So What I wanted to demonstrate was just dragging another sample into this here. Where have you gone? There we go. So, for example, you could just drag any sample into there and it will play any sample. That's the quickest way to get a sample into a sampler, an audio sample into a sampler. So again, quickly coming back, I've started to add some transitions, I've added some white noise, I've created an effects group, I've added an impact at the start. And also some white noise, and what I do here is I group them up straight away. I bring the volumes right down so that I can bring them into the mix slowly rather than having them very loud. I like to subtly bring them into the mix. And on the chain here, I've just got a little bit of EQ, which I haven't even done anything, so I'm just going to start EQing this. And also what I've done here on the drums is I've created a quick tom. And I've got the rim shot in there, which I recorded last night. And I've got the drum loop here. And what I'm actually going to do with this drum loop is I faded this in. I didn't filter it in because I just wanted the volume to come up, and I want the frequencies to still be there. So I'm not using a low pass filter. I'm using just a simple volume control. What I'm going to do here is put a quick filter coming up there with this chord, just only very subtly, just a little bit of a rise. Maybe a little bit more. So to explain what I've done on this 8th note synth here, I've assigned a filter and a release time. And what I did to do that is I went into Synth. I hit Command and M. Sorry, first of all, I hit the configure button. The configure allows me to assign any parameters. And here we go, it's starting to go mad again. Everything's gone loud. Yeah. Every time I seem to do this, it seems to make everything go louder, and it messes all my volumes, which is, it's done completely. It's made everything just shoot up to +6, +6. Yeah, it has, you can see. And that's what happens, my entire mix distorts. So just bear with me a second, please. I've just got to sort this all out. Why it keeps doing this, I've got to work out why that every time I go into MIDI or configure mode in Synth, it literally puts all of my mixer volumes through the roof. Okay, we seem to be back to normal again. So yeah, as I say, what I've done here, I've put a little bit of a filter and also a release time. And to do that, I can hit the configure button. I assign the parameters I want by clicking on them. I'm not going to do that again this time. I'm going to have to work out why that's actually happening. And then I go into Command and M at the same time. That takes me into MIDI mapping mode. And that allows me then to assign a controller on my keyboard, which is what I've done. You can see here controller number 48 is assigned to the cutoff frequency, and that allows me to then control that in real time. You can see. And also that there. There we go. So obviously that's overridden that, so to get that back you just click off the button at the top there. And I just started to create a little bit of a transition section here. So time, the sort of release time coming up on part A, we're going to do it on part B as well. So I'm going to want to assign that, or I can actually just click on that there. And if you notice, any button that you click on, it changes the parameters on that particular part. So what I'm going to do is do the same again for this release here, and just quickly automate it up. And I'm just going to check the other part as well. In fact, what I'm going to do is highlight that. I'm going to copy the automation, copy, and then we're going to go back to the other part, click on that, and we're going to highlight the same section and paste automation if it will let me. Looks like Ableton have took that feature away. So they'll just Control V and it will just paste it on. And I'm just going to subtly make that different there. And again, for some unknown reason, it's reset this in the mix. And what I also did here is I actually put some delay on this last section here, and I did that by clicking on the Send B, and I put a little bit of automation there to transition that 8th note across into that section there. And then I come down to the feedback here and I automate this feedback, and that's what I was about to do, and I realized I couldn't see the screen on the other version. So I'm just going to pick up from where we left off, and that's what I was about to do. So I'm going to put this on. Okay, so you can see that feedback there. So to do that quickly, I'm just going to highlight very, very widely this section, take a section there, put the feedback up, and then bring it down in that section there. I'm going to play it from the start just to refresh my mind and see where we can move forward from this section. And just before I do that, I just want to explain for the restart of this YouTube session again, is that what I've done here on the drums, I've put a little bit of EQ just to take out the low ends. I've rolled off the top here. I've put a little bit of sidechain compression on just to give a little bit of slide ducking effect. It's very, very subtle, as you'll see. what else I did was basically just go through the compression. I've put a full parallel compressor on there, and I've also put a rock parallel compressor just to sort of tidy up and glue all the drums together. I don't want all of the transients coming out of the mix and on the drums and sounding unnatural. I try and sort of glue my drums together, and my process of mixing is, as I've mentioned here, sort of basic mixing, EQ and compression. I like to do this as I'm going along in the mix because I think it's important. I think when you're just starting out, it's important just to understand your structuring really, and you know, your gain controls. What we're aiming for, if I come back to the master out, what I'm aiming for here is, normally I would put this on 0, but I'm using this to control the output into YouTube at the moment. So this would normally be set to 0, and so for this purpose I'm going to drop it back to -6, and what we're looking to do is try and get all of the tracks sounding really nice and clear without clipping the mix here. So if you can control most of your mix and without it clipping, you've got lots of headroom, especially when you send your track off to a mastering engineer, or if you self-master, you want to give yourself some headroom. In the days of analog, you could get away with +3, +6 on the master out and also on your channels, but unfortunately with digital mixing, you want to keep it below 0. So the best way to do that is what I start to do is I start bringing all my elements down, starting from -6 with my kick drum, -6, -7. That gives me initial -6 decibels of headroom from that point there. I'm just going to turn that off so you don't get a reverb echo. So yeah, just a quick touching on the mixing, and then we'll go back into the track. So what I usually do is I'll put a basic mastering chain on this. Now if I put my mastering chain on, it will probably blow the speakers out and it'll be too loud, so I'm not going to do that in this session. We'll wait till another session and I can sort of preset that up and test that. But just to quickly touch on this, when a track goes onto the radio, it gets compressed and limited 2 or 3 different times. There may be compressors, limiters, so it's squashing the life out of your mix. So if you completely flatten your mix and trying to make everything fight together in the mix, you're not going to get any dynamic room or dynamic range in your mix. So how I do that, as I say, I start off with my kick drum -6, my bass anywhere between -10, -12 decibels, and take it forward from there. And I start bringing my drums into the mix and all my other elements. And we haven't even done any sort of panning or what's known as mid-side compression or mid-side EQ, where you actually not just focus on the stereo field, you actually focus on the sides of the mix and down the middle of the mix as well. So when we come to do the mixing section, I will cover the sort of mid-side band EQ sessions and that in more detail. So for this, we're just literally, guys, sort of focusing on getting the mix sounding right. And as I say, the rule of thumb, I'm always looking for this decibel, -6 decibels of headroom. And if I can get the track sounding good like that, without it clipping, we're onto a winner. And I do that by just clicking on the reset button there, on the root means square button. So let's go back into the mix. And just going to drop that down so not too much of a echo. So I'm going to play the track from the start again so I can get a feel for what's going on. I'm going to start looking for some other elements in the mix. And if you've got any questions, please leave them on the YouTube channel and I will get back to you as soon as I can. And let's just have a quick look. No, of course, nobody on there at the moment, so there we go. Oh, that's lovely. Thanks for that, Chris Connolly. Thanks for sending me that lovely woman's backside weightlifting. That was wonderful of you. Please don't do that again. Okay guys, so just going to do a little bit of messing around with the kick drums and transitions here. I'm also got a filter on here. I'm just going to filter this little section down here. So I'm going to put a 8th note on and highlight that. Drag that down. In fact, what I might do is do it across the whole drums because it's not quite effective there. So sometimes you can try putting effects on, but if it doesn't work, we can go into the whole drums and do the same sort of trick. And I'm putting the filter here because I want the filter to come up through the mix. I don't want it to be after the compressors. I want it to be before the compressors so it stands out in the mix. And this is one of the things with inserts. When you're putting inserts, effects and insert chains on, you need to think about the order that you put your effects in, because if I was to put this afterwards, obviously it will filter all of the sound, but I want this to come up in the mix. So we'll try it here and then we'll try it at the end of the mix and see if there's any difference. And that's what I do. Again, it's experimentation. I spent a lot of time and a lot of years just experimenting with sound rather than making tracks, just working how plugins work and understanding the different features of a particular plugin. And this is the beauty of Ableton Live. It allows you to sort of just rack up as many effects as you want. You can get sort of messy and out of control, but you know, that's your choice. So what we're going to do is just filter this down quickly, have a quick listen. I'm also going to sign it so I can do it in real time. So again, I'm doing this on the controller. I'm just going to assign that there so I can do this in real time. So I like that. And again, sometimes what I do is I will actually start a track in sort of clip mode, and I'll do everything in live by triggering clips. For this particular purpose, I'm actually just doing the track in the original arrangement view. So in the future, I will do a track or a session on building a track for in live for going onto stage. I've actually got a full template set up and about sort of 12 tracks inside that, but I've got to sort of reset it up and remap it because it's come from my old Mac and it may not be set up ready for the new Mac. So I've got to literally go over the entire live setup again. But that is for another day. So what I'm going to do quickly, I like that little filter there. I'm going to highlight that one bar, drag it down. I may try it over 2. No, let's try it over there. I'm just going to bring that up slowly so that the tom comes back in. And only very softly. And take off the quantize off completely so I can just do this in freehand. And for example, I've got a reverse cymbal here, and I've purposely kept that out of the drum track, and I want this on its own because sometimes you don't want all of the drums filtered at the same time because you won't get that effect. If I was to put that in there, you'll see what happens. kind of a swoopy effect on that, and I don't want that. So the aim is to keep the reverse crash out and keep it away from the drum group and just let that do its own thing. So let's look for some more sounds, some more effects. Let's start building up the sections. I could start looking for some vocal effects. Let's see what we have. So samples. We want some impacts. Yeah, let's have that. Okay, quickly guys, just apologise, I just need to do something very, very quickly. I need to reactivate my crypto tab and we come back. And what I'm going to do is put a little bit of compression on this drums effect, oh sorry, group effects. Just want to bring that up into the mix so it stands out a little bit more. So we're going to come into audio effects again. I'm going to start putting a little bit of a mixing trick as well. I use what's known as a Haas Effect on my synths, and anything I want to sort of be in stereo and stand out more, usually on my synths and vocals. I don't put any Haas effects on my kick drums, my snares, my basses, because I want them to be in mono, and I will quickly explain that as well. If you look on my bass here, I've got that in mono. So I put a utility plugin here and I put that into mono and make sure it's definitely the width of 0, because when you're on a club system you want to make sure that your sounds actually come out and they stand out on all of the speakers around the club, because most stereo systems in a nightclub don't have stereo systems. They will be speakers dotted around the nightclub, and you want to make sure that the kick drums, the bass and all of the sort of low end frequency elements come through those speakers. Anything else will be mixed in sort of stereo, or if you send your track off for mastering in stem mastering, you can have Dolby surround sound mastering, which I had done for my Pink Bomb remix that I did, my DB9 project remix of my track from 1998 called Indica. And that was released on Solar Stone's label, and when I sent off the track he asked me for stems, and I had to literally bounce all of the stems down for Dolby surround sound mastering, and it actually sounds great. So if you go across to YouTube and type in Indica DB9 project, you will find my remix, or Pink Bomb Indica, you'll find my remix. And that's a track that we made as a group in 1998 or 97 and released it in 98 on Quad Communications, and then re-released it back on Solar Stone's label back in 2018 and 2019 for the remix package. So I'm going to put a little bit of compression on this group, effects group. I'm also going to put maybe a little bit of distortion just to bring them out in the mix a little. We'll see what happens. A bit of saturation. Where's the saturation gone? There we go. So a little bit warmer. We're going to add that into the mix. just a little bit of glue compression just to top it off. Again, I'm not going to put loud, just going to put a soft knee, actually no, I'm just going to put a gentle knee compressor or kneeless compressor on there. In fact, that's the wrong one. I was looking for the glue compressor. There we go. Just want a little bit of gentle squeezing together. Glue side chain there. Got an impact here as well from yesterday. I'm just going to drag that into the effects group as well, just to sort of glue them all together. Do, obviously, because I've boosted that, it's brought up all the other levels, so I can either adjust the levels individually or we just drop the entire group down a fraction. So I brought that down -3 decibels. Okay, so we're going to try a Haas effect on the effects group. So what I do for the Haas effect, I use a simple stereo delay and I just slightly offset them, and I've got one pre-made here in my audio effects rack, and I have a Haas effect. And we also maybe put some washout as well, and on the master out start doing a little bit of sort of tweaking on the master out, transition washouts. And so here's the Haas effect, and I'll explain this for you. So if you look in here, you can see on my chains I've got a left and a right, and on each chain I've got a delay, and basically what it does is split the mix. It creates sort of a wider stereo feel. It slightly offsets the mix. And let's have a look. We've got sort of 10 milliseconds here, and actually that's interesting. Left and right is slightly, should be one down. Oh, it's because I see what's happened now, because of the old Ableton Live from version 9. It's actually it's sort of linked them together, so it's actually messed my Haas effect up in my chain. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is reset one back to 0 or 1 millisecond, and one to around about 10-15 milliseconds. I wasn't aware that Ableton Live 10 had done that. In Ableton Live 9, this was just set up as a simple delay, but obviously they've changed their effects over time. and it's taken this and linked the two together, and that's not what I want. I wanted actually just want to be slightly offset by 10 to 15 milliseconds, and it creates just a sort of a natural stereo feel. It perceives in the left ear and the right ear slightly differently. So if you Google Haas Effect, you will see what it's all about. And what I've just done there, guys, is basically just save that again, so I've got another version of it there. So if you create an effect in Ableton Live, the great thing to do is if you mess around with something, you like the settings, instead of having to recreate it, just click the save, hit the save button there, and literally it saves it up here into your own audio effects. So what we're going to do now is come to the master out, have a look at the bass Clef Washout plugin. I like to use sometimes. It just adds a little bit of smooth transitions in the mix. And if you see here, what will happen is when I move that, see it's adding reverb and some delay, and also a low pass filter, reverb, EQ, filter, delay, and some compression. And it's just great for little quick transitions. So I'll demonstrate this and some of these sections here on the master out. Okay, so again, it's great for just a little subtleness. Don't overdo it because it can get very messy and it can mess your tracks up, so I tend to just put a little bit of subtleness in there. In fact, not that much. I tend to sort of drop my transition sort of around about there, maybe four bars. So you can see what it does when I did it across the whole mix. That was just the effect. So I'm just going to demonstrate what happens when it goes across the entire mix. I'm just going to override this. And that's why I say be very, very careful and very subtle with it. So again, I'm just trying the Haas Effect on the synth here. What I could do is I could try it on all of them, so I could end up grouping my synths. So we'll try that. We'll try grouping the two synths together and the chords, what we've got here. Let's have a look. Didn't realise I've actually got two versions of that that running there, that chord, so I'm just going to mute that one off. I don't want that. May actually use that as a different layer, so we can demonstrate that's what we're going to talk about here. Try adding a new synth layer and sound, so maybe that's what I was actually trying to do last night before the end of the session. So let's have a quick look at that, and we're going to go into Ableton, Synth, and we're going to see if we can find a slightly better sound. Let's have a look at one of these super saws. Now that's very nice. That might work well later on in the break. So let's have a look at what it sounds like in the whole mix, but I don't think it'll work right now. And this is where it starts getting fiddly, because what happened there is I've literally got automation copied across from the other synth here. So if you look at Silent, it's literally trying to copy the same automation. We don't want that. And that's where it can start getting messy if you're not sure what's going on, and everybody goes, oh, why is that doing that, and why is this doing this? So be careful when you do copy sections down. You can use this button here, and that turns off your automation lanes, but this one here, when you click off that, if I were to copy this, for example, it won't take the automation with it, or it will, and the lock usually should take the automation and stop that happening. Will it work? There we go. So if I lock that there, it won't copy the automation, but when I turn the lock off, it will copy the automation. So just something to be mindful on your automation lanes there. So we'll keep that off there for now. So we're just going to have a listen to this sound, see what it does, and move it from here. So what's happening there is literally, as the filter opens and closes, there's kind of almost a LFO on there, and it's affecting the cutoff filter. So if you look in the synth here, guys, what that's doing is literally playing a pattern. And if you look at the pattern, if you click on the rate there, you can see that it's a 16th note. If you look at the LFO there, so LFO 1 rate 16th note, so it's playing literally a 16th note. So we're going to try that on an 8th and see what happens. So not going to use that there. That may become later on in a different break later on. So just experimenting really. So, but what's just again demonstrate that what's happening here is that every time the filter opens, the full frequency of the sound plays, because the amp envelope here is in full decay and full sustain mode, and the release is open quite a lot, and also the start of the attack on the envelope is open sort of halfway as well. So just to demonstrate again. We've got 8 triplet notes playing there. So again, it is our experimentation. It may become handy later on as a layer. For now, we're just going to mute it out and focus on this section again. So ideally, just to recap, ideally what I would like to have done was obviously build the whole section of the track, the whole arrangement. And that is not going to happen obviously this evening. The aim for your first session really is to just get the entire arrangement going across, 2, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, however long you want your track to be. So what I tend to do is just come across like this, and let's just put a few more elements in. So we've got 4 minutes, roughly 4 minutes, and that gives us a building block to start stripping things back out. Okay, so we've got another one there, and we can just like so, and then what I'll do is just drag this kick drum across. It's a mini break there, so I'm just going to start my kick drum there, and I'm going to loop the kick drum across. Let's have a look at the drums. So what I would do again is bring these drums right across, and it allows you to basically start going in and taking sections out. So okay, we say, well, yeah, we'll play that to there, and I don't want the kick to play there, for example. Let's go into 1 bar and I'll take that out, and if I wanted to do the whole section, I could just highlight those drums there like that and take all of those out. And so on and so forth, and that kind of gives you a building block. So in your first session, that's what we should aim to do, and in the second session is coming back and sort of adding effects, delays, some basic EQs and compressions, just like I've mentioned in here. So just to recap this session, I am going to pretty much finish up for the evening. So we're adding time-based delays, effects, reverbs, adding more movement with noise effects, developing transitions, that's with effects, and also sort of transitions on the master out, basic mixing, EQ and compression, sidechain compression, and developing the intro and outro, adding a melody. We'll do that in tomorrow's session. Ideally, what Sep from Unison says is to try and sort of focus on 3 days, write a track in 3 days. So you do your arrangement in day 1, you come back on the next day and you start adding your effects in, and then you do your mixing on day 3. In reality, yeah, it depends on the amount of elements in the track, it depends on the complexity of the track. I mean, if I'm doing a remix, I can usually do that in about 3 to 6 hours. I can do a remix from start to finish because you've got elements, and we will be covering that in a session one of the days, starting a remix. From scratch and working on the different elements. In our first session I did show you sort of a remix that I've done and working on stems on a track, and in one of the sessions I'm going to do, after we've done these live sessions, I'm actually going to show you a remix that I've done using stem files and how I came up with the remix and the idea, and so that'll be a track walkthrough. So what I'm going to do here now is just start copying a few more elements across. What I tend to do now is I'll just start dropping more markers in. So for example here I'll add a locator, and that may be my main break. That might be a mini drop, mini break. We'll see. Where are we? So main break, yeah, main break will probably come sort of around sort of 2.5 minutes here. So we may have a mini break there. And in fact, I'm not sure at this precise moment where we're going with it, but what I tend to then do next is I start bringing some of these elements back in again. So I'll highlight that and highlight that and drop down the drop and start adding a few more elements in, and just again just see what happens. So you can see what I've done there, just copy those across, and I'm just moving sections around just to mix it up a little bit. Now we go back in and try and find a few more effects, some samples. I'm going to type in fact no, I'm not this time. I'm just going to go straight to a sample pack, see if I can find anything. And the key of the track, we've got A. Here. So that's handy. Sometimes you get some nice little step effect stems here, so we're just going to drag that in and see what that will do for us. Awful, so I don't like that. So we're going to take that out. In fact, it's not in the right key. It's just probably a semitone out of key. Yeah, we're going into sort of just sample packs here at the moment. What I tend to do, if I'm looking for something specific, I'll just type in the key of the track. So we're just going to go A Vox and see what it throws up. It limits all your samples down, so not everything will load. Okay, I like that, but we're just going to put a little bit of reverb and automate the reverb on it. In fact, we're just going to drop the reverb straight in and delay as well. So you can see we've got a little bit of feedback there on our delay, and that sounds nice as it carries across. So I may just bring this feedback across on the delay. Do the Going to do the same here as well. I like that reverb delay effect with some feedback. And also back here. Push the reverb up just a touch more, just to be a little bit louder in the mix. So change my quantize to a quarter there. What I've done there is just push the feedback right up at the peak, so it carries it through and then just tails off back down to 0 to nothing. And again, just slightly boosting the send gain there as well. I'm just going to try something. It may or may not work. I'm just going to reverse this sample. No, that didn't work. So another idea I've got, I just want to try something again with the 8th notes here as well, before these come in. What I want to try and do is just create a simple chord. So I'm going to use this one instead, because it's got longer notation, legato notes. And I'm going to create a MIDI track, an audio track underneath quickly. And all I want is this first note here. And I'm going to freeze the track. Okay, so now I've frozen that track. All I want is, I just want this note here, just this section. I want to reverse this note, so I'm just going to copy that down into audio. I can unfreeze this now. That's interesting. It's deactivated the clip. That must be another new feature in Ableton Live 10, and it's going to have to get used to what's happening with all these new features. So some of the tricks I'm trying to do, they come off in Ableton Live 9, but in Live 10 it's doing different things. For example, freezing a track with a compressor on. You could not do that before, but looks like they allow you to actually freeze a track now with a compressor on. If you've got a sidechain compressor on a synth, or on anything, on any channel, you could not freeze the track, but you can now. Wow. I do recommend Ableton Live because it's just one of those programs that's really, really fast for working in. There's literally, like, you can see there's like no tools, just a draw mode, which I press the B button, especially when I'm in MIDI. There you go, look, and you can just draw. And I love this new feature that I've got, and in the new Ableton Live 11 coming, you'll be able to select MIDI and actually assign a chord or a mode to the pattern, and it stays in that mode. But you can do this now, and I love this feature where you can actually select the MIDI. It's not doing it for me, it's going to be silly, but you can select the pattern, and you can see the notation between the two different patterns, and you usually can see the chords behind it, but it's not showing me at the moment. Why it's doing that, I don't know, but please, Ableton, stop being silly. And I'm not going to focus on that at the moment, because again, it's a feature that doesn't seem to want to work for me right this moment. But so usually what will happen is I can select these two parts, and when I click in there, it will show me the other pattern, but it's not doing it for me. Oh, there we go. There we go. It's doing it now. So you can see I've highlighted those two sections. So when you switch between the patterns, you can, when I select the other pattern at the same time, you can actually see the chords behind it in the background. So you can see when I hover there, look, it does that. So it makes a full notes. And this is really useful if you struggle with music theory. You can actually create your chords, and then you can start drawing your notation on top, and everything will actually be in key for you, which is a really, really good feature. And again, obviously, depending on which you're in, it will switch back. So I'm just going to try to see how this works, and then I click that one. There we go. So you can actually sort of start drawing notes. So you can see that would be out the right key, so you could drop that there, you could drop that there. So if we wanted to put a little notation pattern here, we could do that. You always know that you're going to be exactly in key with the right parts. Does get a little bit fiddly and takes some getting used to, as you could just demonstrated, but a very, very handy feature. And as I say, in Ableton Live 11, which is out pretty soon, you will be having this feature over the side where we can actually put the MIDI part into its key, and it stays in key. There are other features that do that in Ableton. For example, I could come into the MIDI effects here. I'm just going to take that off. So I can see you've got MIDI and chord. So we could put on a chord here, major chord, minor chord, etc. So if I wanted to keep this in major, I just put that on, and that locks into a major chord. And that plays a chord for you, but also you have a scale. So if you want a major scale, or in C or in D, for example, look, we could just put that in D, and we can change our notation. Let's try a different one. Let's try, say, for example, a Lydian mode, and you can see that everything in that key will play in that mode there. And you can see it sounds completely out of tune. Because what it's doing, it's playing a Lydian mode now, and it's playing all these notes, and it's keeping all of the notation within the Lydian mode or Lydian scale. So a very handy feature if you struggle with music theory. I understand music theory. I'm just not brilliant at playing keys. I can play ideas. I usually play my bass line ideas in with my left hand on the lower notes. I usually start off with a few different chords and then I'll play them in and record them in, but my timing is not brilliant, so that's why MIDI is a godsend for somebody like myself. But yeah, as I say guys, I'm going to wrap up the session now, and it's getting late, it's 9 o'clock, and so hopefully tomorrow or the next session I will be going over more mixing techniques. And we're going to start sort of mixing the track down, getting the levels right. I would like to finish the second half of the track, but again, this is just a simple tutorial. It's just a building block tutorial to get you started in electronic music. What I will do one of the days, I will take a couple of my tracks and I will dissect them down for you, how I've created sections. I'll also show you a quick way of starting a track with a template, and starting off with this, just you've got sort of certain sounds, a side chain set up, reverbs set up, ready to go, synth sounds ready to go, so you literally just jump into your sequencer and off you go. I just want to say good evening to Rachel Slater. Hello Rachel, how are you doing? Rachel's over there on Facebook watching. So yeah, as I say guys, any questions, please leave them on the YouTube channel. We are over here, and that will be published in the next hour, or fingers crossed, or hopefully tomorrow that will be done. And I will get back to any questions that you have, so be nice, leave the comments, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button, or the dislike button, whichever you prefer. And fingers crossed we can start growing our channel. So yeah, please do share it around, and so we can get our subscribers. And also don't forget to come across to our Facebook group, not that one, that's my profile, and come across to Elite EDM Stars Facebook and like that as well. I think we're on 99 followers at the moment, so it'd be nice to get up to at least 100 followers by the end of this week. And tomorrow I will go over the website again and show you how you can get in touch with us to book a session. So I'm going to finish up guys, I'm just going to play this out and I'm going to call it a night. So it's good night from me, and it's good night from him. just quickly, I'm just finishing off with, I'm creating some double kick effects and stuff, but we'll go into that tomorrow. So mixing up your mix and transitions and a few other mixing tricks as well. So that just leaves me to say a final good night and stay safe out there, guys, and look after yourselves and look after your loved ones. So all the best, take care, good night. Good night.